Hi. Well, hopefully you've seen the last video talking about what is conditional access. In this video, we're really going to talk about how you would configure and how you would apply a conditional access policy, walking through a few different examples and a few different use cases. The first example that I'm going to show is how you would apply a strong authentication or multi-factor authentication policy when signing into Office 365. Now, as a first step, I'm going to sign into the Azure portal and go to the Azure AD blade. Then from this blade, I can navigate under the security settings and open up conditional access policies. Now, I've already created the policies that we're going to be looking at, but I can walk through them and show you what I've done and call out some key points. Now, I've set up this requires strong authentication policy. And when I open this up, this will really map back to that diagram that I showed on the previous video, talking about what conditional access policy is, where there's the two parts of the policy, conditions and controls, when the policy is applied and what does it do. So in the assignments and conditions is when this policy is going to be applied. And I've configured user targeting here. Now you have several different options of how you want to be able to do this targeting. You could apply it to guest users based on specific Azure AD roles like global admins, or targeting specific users and groups. To start out with, I'm going to apply this policy to Frank. Now, another key part of this policy is which applications this applies to. And I've selected several of the Microsoft Office 365 offerings in the applications here, which is a recommended practice to be able to have a consistent policy across these apps to provide both the most consistent user experience and also to secure the applications. Now I can go under conditions to do some additional configuration here. Now in this policy, I'm going to start out by only requiring multi-factor authentication for users who are outside the corporate network. And I can do that by going to the location condition. Now when I open that up, I can say this policy is going to trigger for a user coming from any location. And then I can exclude the trusted locations. And these would be locations that I had gone in, that I would have configured with the trusted egress IP ranges from my network. The other really important condition to configure here is for cloud apps. Now what this does is it specifies which applications this policy is going to apply to. And that covers browser, mobile, and then also other clients, which would be older legacy clients, like older versions of Office or some third-party apps as well. And this makes sure that you have full coverage across all different access points to the data. Now that we've gone through and said when this policy is going to apply, we're going to say what it does. And you can do that through the access controls under the grants. In this case, it's pretty straightforward. I'm just going to say require a multi-factor authentication. As the last step, I enable the policy, and then you would close and save. Now, that's about making sure it's the right user who's able to access data. But I also want to make sure that when that data comes down onto a device, that it stays secure. And I'll do that by making sure that the device that it's going to is a device that I trust and a device that I can manage. All of the configuration is the same in terms of when I want to trigger this policy, but I'm adding some additional controls here. Under the controls, I'm saying the requirement is to have a compliant device. This would be a compliant device that's been evaluated by Intune or SCCM, as well as requiring a hybrid Azure AD joined device. This is a device that's been joined to your on-premise AD, and then also has been registered within Azure Active Directory. OK, and the other important thing to call out here, what this illustrates, is when you do have multiple controls, you also have the option to say how you want them to interact. In this case, I've said require one of the selected controls. That means I know that I have a compliant device that's managed, or I have a machine that's joined to my on-prem AD that I can use some other technique for managing, like a group policy. Now, a really common question is when you have multiple policies like this, a trusted device and a strong auth policy, where all the scoping is the same user, same application, how do they combine together, which takes precedence? Now, when we have these sort of configuration, it's really all policies are applied. So in this case, there's effectively an and between these. The user has to perform strong authentication, and they have to have a trusted device. And to have that trusted device, it could be compliant or domain joined. The third policy really illustrates some deeper integration that we've done with other services. And this is going to be about keeping people productive, getting access to data, even if they're not necessarily on a work-owned device that they've enrolled and fully managed. Instead, what you can do using Microsoft Cloud App Security or using native integrations within SharePoint and Exchange, you can create a session policy. And when this session policy is triggered using all the same controls, it'll apply a restriction that when you get into that app, you get into SharePoint Online or you get into Workday through Cloud App Security, that when you do a file download, that it does a check to see if you're on a compliant device. If you're not, then it's blocked. It keeps all the data in the cloud, in that web experience. And this is a way to allow people to get access to data without storing it on your device and possibly compromising that information. Now, when you're using Cloud App Security, you have other options and controls here as well, too, beyond what's the quick options here. Now, the quick options are being able to opt in and just be able to have monitoring all traffic. So you can see what someone's doing when they're going to, say, Workday. Or that block down download option that I had mentioned. Creating the custom policy gives you a bit more power, where you can go in and create something that fits your organization, like making sure documents get encrypted with specific labels using Azure Information Protection on download. Now, really across the board, conditional access policy provides a rich set of integrations and a rich set of controls you're able to use in order to achieve zero trust within your organization. All right, well, hopefully that's given you a good overview of what you can do with conditional access policies. You can configure the policies in order to achieve a zero trust posture for your organization and keep your data secure in the cloud. Next time, we'll be talking about how you would roll out and monitor some of these policies and manage conditional access. Thanks.